Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Happy Thursday. Been a hot minute since we've done one of these compliance scorecard strategic alliance conversations. We're really excited to have our great guests here today, Mark and Randy. Mark is our, over the pond. So we're dealing with a little bit of that, over the pond, a little bit of that sort of oceans between us, not Ocean's 12, maybe Ocean's 3, because there's only 3 of us here. But yeah, really excited to talk a little bit about compliance, a little bit about AI, a little bit about LLMs and generative stuff. But what I'm going to do here real quick is I'm going to give Mark, since he's the one furthest away, the opportunity to come on up and say hello and tell us who, what, where, when, how, and why.
Okay, well, I'm Mark Heather, co-founder, as it says at the bottom, with Randy of the Compliance Aid. We are primarily an AI-driven platform for cybersecurity compliance. I've been in the sales side of the business, and it's my remit to actually educate people, bring people on board, and obviously make sales. So that's really what I'm here to do.
You're on mute, Tim.
I know, I can just keep talking away on mute all day. It's probably how you want to have me, is on mute. So you'd think this was my first time or something. It wasn't like I was on this last night and tomorrow too. But Randy, why don't you come on up and say hello?
Sure. Thanks, Tim. Hey, everybody. I'm Randy Blasek, co-founder of the Compliance Aid. So my primary role is the CTO. So I'm the nerd, I'm the compliance nerd, I'm the cybersecurity expert, but I'm also the AI expert in the company. And, thanks, Tim, for putting this on, by the way. I know how much time and effort this stuff always takes. And, I certainly appreciate it. Mark certainly appreciates it. And, thanks. So back to you, and can't wait to have the chat.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much. I have my new standing desk, which means I can walk around. I got to get the treadmill under here and kind of get my blood pumping and do the things. But I suppose I should take my moment and do my shameless plug too. Hello, everybody. Tim Golden, founder and CEO of Compliance Scorecard, where we help your MSP have the risk conversation with your customer. And book a live demo down there, do the things. We're really excited. Again, Tim Golden, founder and CEO of Compliance Scorecard. So Mark, I know you have a couple of questions that we kind of been bouncing back and forth. Before we dive into that, Randy, maybe you can talk, briefly, 3 to 5 minutes or whatever. What the hell is the Compliance Aid, and why should we even care?
Yeah, sure. Mark, you want to take this one, or you want me to?
I don't mind. We could do the dog and pony show, as we say over here in the UK.
Sure. We'll do the dog and pony show. So.
Do the dog and pony. Give me your 2 minute, 1 minute, 30-second pitch.
Okay. So the Compliance Aid is a cybersecurity compliance as a service platform. We're multilingual, so for the rest of us in Europe, that sort of covers a multitude of sins. And what we do for MSPs is we take the heavy lifting out of doing compliance. So that's the bit which everybody hates doing, which is reading the documents, aligning documents to questions in frameworks, and then deriving from that a gap analysis and a next steps plan of action. And that's all delivered via the AI platform without additional overhead. So for an MSP, they want it as a service. They don't need any additional overhead. They just need to get in contact and deliver security-rated documents, and we use those documents to deliver.
I love that.
Alignments.
So you said one of my most favorite words, which is what we built a compliance scorecard in our process. The very first one is alignment. And I love that you said that word, right? Because aligning a thing, aligning to a framework, aligning a policy to actual business process. Alignment is something that we talk a lot about, and really it's the first step of building a compliance and a risk program, right? So when we start to dig into this alignment conversation, Randy, maybe you have some thoughts about what does that look like?
Yeah. So one of my past jobs was running an MSP. We had 65 engineers. We did business nationwide to regulated industries, and eventually I exited to a PE firm. And many of our engagements with some of these regulated clients was going through cybersecurity assessments with them. So, I sort of come from, I guess, experience when I answer the question of what alignment means to me, because I did this. So basically what it is just taking a list of rules and regulatory requirements that you're given, and then going through your documents, your policies, your procedures, going through your tech stack, your technology controls, and then just analytically tying those together. One by one, control by control. So you're basically, some of these controls, by the way, Tim, they're technical. The controls will say, hey, we need antivirus on a system, right? Everybody knows that. Or, some other technical controls are like, hey, we need to run Windows updates on the system, right? Those are technical controls. But then there's some control requirements that are out there that are like, they're asking specific, policy and procedure. Like, have you had a risk discussion, or what's your risks rating for certain business objectives, right? So there's a lot of different efforts and roles that are needed within an organization that are required to help align an organization to any specific cybersecurity framework. So alignments are kind of tricky, I guess, Tim, but I don't know.
Yeah. And obviously our audience is MSPs, right? And so when we think about this, at least I try to respond and make it relatable a little bit to the MSP, right? So if I'm an MSP and I think of that word alignment, I'm like, I probably want to align with a framework. I don't know, CompTIA Trustmark, for example, CIS. I mean, has anybody watched the news in the last 4 or 5 days? Some big 4-letter word thing just came out. It kind of begins with a C and ends with the, you know what I'm talking about? So are we aligned to CMMC? Are we aligned to pick a framework? Doesn't matter the framework. Obviously different frameworks.
I gotta throw one out, dude. I gotta throw one out for my boy over on the other side of the pond, man. Mark, which just came out in Europe. What framework?
Well, we obviously over here we're pretty big on ISO 27001, but there's a couple of new ones.
Is it Dora?
Yeah, I was saying that there's a couple of ones. Actually, is it the 17th today? I think one comes into a line today, which is NIS2 and DORA, which is heavily European. But if you're a US-based organization wanting to deal in Europe, you've got to align and adhere to the framework.
I mean, this one?
NIS2.
NIS.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you brought that up, right? Because, as part of what we do here is we monitor all this crap across the interwebs and the things that happen. I mean, not privacy. Privacy is disastrous. I mean, it is, but it isn't. But if you look at the privacy laws in the US, it's a disaster. Anyways, NIST 2, you are correct, my friend. It says pre-live. Oh, all right. Yeah, Chris, putting a comment up there. Hey, you need to refresh LinkedIn in order for it to actually start showing. Thanks, buddy. Sorry. I don't know, LinkedIn. But yes, NIST 2, today's the 17th. So here we are, front and center. And, our team put together a bunch of really good guides to help the MSPs. What is it? How do we deal with it? How do we roll it out? Even more so, how do we sell it? Right. So yeah, NIST 2, CMMC, DORA, FTC just came out with something yesterday, which is fascinating to me, which is the one-click unsubscribe. Hey, Randy, how many monthly services do you pay for here in the US that is a pain in the ass to cancel? Netflix and gym membership and Hulu and Apple and blah, 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 right? I'm sure you're like me. You get a bunch of those things on your credit card, and you're like, damn, I need to cancel that. And it walks you through like a very hard process to cancel. And the FTC just put out a ruling on that with the whole one click to cancel stuff, making it easier for us consumers to get rid of stuff that we didn't want, that auto renewed, all the free trial, whatever. And so the point that I'm trying to make here along Mark and Randy is that these control frameworks, these regulations, these guidances and laws, as an MSP, they're hitting you every single day. And even more, they're hitting your customer every single day. I mean, we've just had 4 major ones in a week. And so what does that mean for an MSP? How does that relate to alignment? Pick a framework and start digging into it. And even better, do the work on yourself, right? Be your own test case and being able to get your own house in order and those kinds of, buzzwords that I'm supposed to be using. So, but yes, I believe we're heading down this whole idea of generative AI, GPTs, GMOs, MP, whatever, all the acronyms around artificial intelligence, large language models, generative things. Randy, I feel like you're a little bit more of an expert down that path. Can you tell me, when we always hear AI, it's AI. It's not just AI, there's other components. Maybe you can break that down into the smallest terms for our audience here.
Yeah, sure. Generative AI is right now it's one of the fastest moving industries I think I've ever seen, and I've been in cybersecurity and technology since like 1995. So generative AI is basically it's an accessible entity that developers can access, and we can solve really complex problems really quickly now with it. So what does that really mean for like MSPs, right? I mean, so we have a lot of workflows at an MSP, right? I mean, we have every MSP has different clients in different industries, and different levels of support, right? And so the problem that we had always had at my past MSP was just all of these different workflows, and there were losses in profit margins because these workflows were time consuming or different. So with generative AI, we can basically handle some of these low level tasks that were difficult or time consuming with these off the shelf commercially accessible large language models. All right.
You said,
where are they? Oh, go ahead.
Hold on. So you said, oh my God, my mind is blown, right? So isn't it all just AI? Isn't it all just Terminator, right? Right? We have AI.
So Tim,
we have AI. We have generative AI. I saw LLMS something. Oh my God, my brain is exploding.
Yeah. So check this out. Let me try to find a board. So large language models are basically AI. What everybody's talking about, all these developers out there, they're building all of their tech stacks off of what's called a large language model. Okay, and these large language models are basically, from a developer perspective, they're coming out like every other day. Okay, I mean, just Google LLM leadership board on, look at Hugging Face or any one of the Hugging Face. Yeah, you never heard of Hugging Face?
I have.
Do we have a link for it? Yeah. Okay.
No, I have. I'm just
anyways. So these large language models are, basically API endpoints that all have varying levels of intellect. They all do different things for developers. Some of them can look at pictures and understand pictures. Some of them can look at video. Some of them can hear audio. Some of them can process text really well. So,
oh my goodness, I'm scared. All the things. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, GPU, I've heard of that one. IoT, I know that one. Q
Yeah.
learning. Some of these things I've never even heard
Should
of.
I calm down on the acronyms?
Maybe. NGL I've heard of. RNN, not to be confused with RMM. So let's bring it back a little bit. There's a bunch of things in the tech space that have exploded over the last 2 to 3 years in conversation and in use. At the core of them, there's some kind of artificial thing happening, whether it's large databases of text and language models, whether it's, learning modules, whether it's machine language. There's a bunch of stuff. Now, I'm going to say this. I'm going to toss this out here. And Randy, maybe you might be old enough. Mark might be a little, feels like he's a little closer to me in age. If I throw this word out, you know what I mean? Watson.
Yeah.
Do you know what Watson was?
It's the big IBM managed service platform, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, it's AI. It's been around for, 15 years. So AI in context isn't necessarily new. But what Randy and we're alluding to is it is now becoming more mainstream, right? I used to remember commercials 10 years ago. Ask Watson, and it would give you stuff, right? Even now, my iPhone, the whole new Apple Intelligence, right? These things are not new. They're just becoming more accessible, right, Randy? They're becoming more mainstream and available to anybody. Just go to huggyface.com and check it, or .io or whatever it is, and check it out. Is there anything else you want to touch on, kind of like some of this backstory and, acronym soup around before we dive into where and how or what this can tie into in compliance?
Thanks, Tim. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I think there's certain things that need to sort of be understood, like what's the difference between agents and what agents are versus what languages are and what uses what and how. Because I think, as you said, that there's a whole new industry of acronyms. And we're hearing things like things being multimodal, for example, which simply means we're not just being text-based when we're building or dealing with interpreting information. So, from building the language models, which the agents use to deliver the results that you're looking for. So, programmers, it's the big thing about AI that most people sort of miss is that AI is not a computer program. So when you build something, especially if you've tailored it for somebody, when you build that AI model, which is, if you like, the correlation to that is the computer program, you can't pick that AI model up and drop it onto another computer or another competitor's infrastructure. It just won't work. So in a similar way that if you're an F1 fan, you get, say, Mercedes make 5 engines for 5 different, they make them, I'm just picking names now, they might make the McLaren, they might make the Red Bull, they might make the whatever, they make engines for those 3 people. They're all in the core. They all could be Mercedes engines, but you can't pick one up. You can't pick the one out of the Red Bull and shove it into the Ferrari, even though they're both using Mercedes engines because they've been tuned specifically for that car. So when you're looking at AI is not a computer program, which is, if it's been designed properly, is transportable to other areas. So that's one thing. The other thing with AI is you don't get black and white answers. So it's not like a maths problem where 1 + 1 = 2 and will always equal 2. With AI, the more complex the question, then you're going to get responses that are like a human. So an AI program or an AI agent is like talking to a human auditor. And we all know if you put 4 auditors in the same room and ask them the same question, you're going to get 4 different answers. Nuances will be
mine being the best. My answer being the best answer out of all 4.
No, I would.
So that's really what people have got to get their head around when talking to AI, because at the moment they expect to get the perfect answer every time. And you can go to Copilot, put the question in, get an answer, put the same question in 5 minutes later, you'll get a slightly different answer. And that's because that's the way it works.
Yeah, and that kind of dives into like this whole well, hold on. Let me do it appropriately. Let's see if I can. The whole hallucination thing.
Yeah.
Right? Does it hallucinate? And it's happened to me, right? I use ChatGPT and Gemini and a couple of others. As you all know, I like to ramble. And it really helps me to like take my thoughts, distill them down, restructure them so that they make sense. Right. So yes, I do use it. But one of the things I started to do was like, all right, act as, and kind of do the prompt engineering, act as a healthcare company that wants to do HIPAA, that has control XYZ 1, 2, 3. This is the kind of company that and kind of build a little bit of prompt engineering and drop that in there and say, answer this control for me, and get a response and be like, okay, done. But then go back with the same thing over on Gemini or any of the others and do the same prompt, you're going to get a totally different answer. And so, this is where, some of Randy's secret sauce starts to come into play. But when it starts telling me I need to eat a pound of rocks a day, now I'm a little concerned.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. So, I look at this like I'm trying to use generative AI like for business purposes. So like to an MSP, for example, we'll talk about, generative AI hallucinating. As an executive, I had, like I said previously, like 60 plus engineers that were answering tickets every single day, right? Maybe 8, 10 tickets a day, they're writing emails, blah, 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 doing some type of work task. They're going to hallucinate on their own terms, like in our business, Tim, right?
I hallucinate on my own terms.
I know, you said you had like 5 misspelled words. I was like, what are you saying? But anyways, the point is like, you can look at the hallucinations like myopically, like on a one-to-one basis, on that one time, yep, I told you to eat rocks at a time when you really needed it to not tell you that, and it was bad. But then when you take it at scale, like, at scale over time, especially to like an MSP or any other business, just trying to solve some type of, average problem. Yeah, we're going to have hallucinations, but when we have employees, real humans solving those same problems, we're probably going to get more over time, especially when we start looking at repetitive tasks, over and over tasks, that require a really long duration of time, like, 4, 5, 6 hours straight of concentration. You're going to see the human, they're going to trail off. They're going to get tired. They're going to have a bad day or whatever. Versus the AI, it's going to consistently respond over time. Yes, it's going to have, a wrong answer every now and then, but over time and over scale, I think it's just, it's a non-issue, especially now with some of the modern next gen reasoning type models that like OpenAI or Claude 3.5 or any of the other models that are coming out. And,
forgot about Claude. Am I frozen? I feel like I'm frozen.
No, you're good. Yeah, you were. Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
I don't know what's going on here. All right, so we're about halfway through. We've kind of set a little bit of a groundwork on AI, generative AI, large language models. We kind of set a little bit of that groundwork. I want to spend the next 20 or 30 minutes here talking about how does this relate to compliance, right? So the first thing I always go to is, where's the data? How's it stored? How's it processed? How's it secured? How's the prompts responding, right? So that's where my brain goes is, if we want to use this as part of a compliance program, how do we use it safely, securely, making sure that, we're checking our T's and dotting our I's, how do we make sure we're using this? Because I just don't want to take my company policy and dump it into ChatGPT and be like, rewrite this. I want to be able to use this in a manner that is effective for us as an MSP and for our customer, and making sure it's safe, secure, de-identified, all the things. So Randy, I suspect you or Mark or both of you have had some conversations and some wherewithal on how do we do that? How do we protect it?
Yeah, I get this one, Mark. So from a technology perspective and being a compliance nerd, I basically built our tech stack, and I'm hoping others do the same. Just trying to follow industry best practices. So for example, I've chosen, or I recommend we choose large language models that are in well-known data centers. I particularly like Microsoft Azure. And Azure comes with additional safety measures, especially for large language models, like content filtering on by default as part of the standard business engagement with them. So yeah, sorry. Are you guys there? Did you freeze?
No, we're here. We're here.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry, I lost my train of thought now.
Okay, well,
No, so we were just talking like, transmitting data back and forth, whether it's policies or procedures, whether it's, and transmitting that data back and forth, and how is that stored, and who can have access, all the security pieces.
Got it. So sending your data, up to a large language model, like I said, I recommend using, a data center that's got, enterprise grade security layers like Azure.
So I shouldn't build my own servers. I should just use a commercially available one like Azure and not build my own servers and figure it out on my own.
So that's a great question, right? I guess the problem now, Tim, is AI is moving so fast. So commercial models right now are coming out so fast that they're beating out the open source models, right? And the open source models require a large amount of compute in GPU. So entry level right now costs to run a real competitive large language model in a local data center is going to be about $40,000 in a GPU, not including
a month, a day, a week, a year, 40 grand a year.
40 grand once for that GPU.
Yeah. I mean, Mark can just write us a check, right, Mark?
Right. Right. But its quality, right? Its quality is going to be like half of what the latest commercial models are right now. And you're not going to be able to solve the same complex challenges that a commercial model app would be able to solve. And then in 2 months from now, the commercial model apps, which right now have PhD level intellect, they're just going to smoke that local data center. It's just going to look far inferior almost on the minute you get it out to market.
Gotcha.
In my opinion. Yeah.
So Mark, you have anything you want to add around the whole, like, how do we protect it? Should we be concerned? From your perspective.
Well, there's a couple of things from our perspective. Our platform, we do not store anybody's data. So once you've done the exercise, the information's gone, and we've deliberately sort of done that because then it helps us integrate with platforms like Compliance Scorecard, because you guys store data. We can then use that data onto our platform and produce what we produce. But it also, for me in Europe, the biggest thing is it solves the great big 4-letter acronym of GDPR compliance, because we're not storing data. It's not leaving the environment that it's been designed in. So, we're not using the information from the clients to educate the rest of the world. So we keep it in-house. So, we're not using our information to actually populate AI, chat GPT. So not, because one of the questions we obviously get is, is our information being used to actually educate the rest of chat GPT? Well, it isn't. We're completely enclosed in that respect. We don't store anybody's data, so we don't have GDPR problems. We don't have that big issue along there. So that's really that's the security side from us. Is, as Randy said, on the technical side, we have top of the range security from Azure that we have obviously paid for the additional stuff, etc., etc. And from a straight normal questions, as I would say, rather than technical questions, we don't have GDPR issues either. From a scalability point of view, we can spin up in any Azure hosting environment, and we can run multiple frameworks at the same time. So gives MSP scalability because they can take on multiple clients at the same time. And as we say before, there's not an investment in additional overhead and things like that. The current staff can run the platform as long as we've got really security-related documents, which, as I say, we can grab from compliance scorecard. So the stuff that you have, we can ingest onto the platform, and then we can produce the gap analysis is more than one or whatever, and the appropriate policies. And because we're using the information that is from the client, i.e. via your platform, then the policies and procedures are specific to that client. So that's, so hopefully the security questions all enhanced, because like I say, we don't go outside of the environment, we don't store your data, we don't have GDPR problems. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that's great, and there's a lot of components. So, when you look at GRC platforms and programs, I won't mention them, but you probably all have a good idea of what's out there, and a lot of them are like, upload your thing to us. Okay, well, where is the data? Who has the data? All the things about the data, security, private, all the things. I don't store that, and neither do you, right? So this is, I hate to keep talking about us and our products, but this is kind of a little bit of why we're doing this is you don't store it, I don't store it, we're better, you're better, but the MSP is going to be able to get results-driven outcomes while doing compliance work and not have to think about or worry about having data stored someplace that they have the data sovereignty of that.
Yeah.
So I don't store it. Yeah. So I'd like to talk a little bit about, we talked about all the sort of acronyms, soup, what is it? Talked a little bit here about, data and data protection and data sovereignty. When we're doing a compliance program, when we're looking to bring in some kind of generative AI like the compliance aid to help us along the way, prompting. I've been kicking around with prompting for a long time. I am by far no expert. Randy is. So Randy, tell us a little bit about, and don't give away secret sauce, but tell us a little bit about that, like the experience that you've learned over the last, year or two of dealing with this.
Yeah, sure. So, I think that's going to be, you had said the secret sauce space is going to be people like me who come up with prompts. Those prompts do something. And that something is just going to be, a large amount of work, right? So it's just, prompting is like the new programming language, I guess. Really is what it is. I mean, that's the way I look at it. It's kind of interesting because, I taught myself how to program when I was like 13, there, back in 1993. And I just remember I didn't really have any formalized training, and I was sort of like, trial and error, programming. And prompting kind of reminds me of that, where it's like, honestly, it's like trial and error. So typically speaking, you write your first prompt, to get your result. What I do, Tim, now, and I recommend anybody doing this moving forward, it's what OpenAI just did with their latest model release on OpenAI 01, is you use generative AI to improve the prompt before you use it again anywhere in your environment. So you create a prompt, right? You ask generative AI to improve the prompt, and then you actually use it to do your work task. And generally speaking, when you do that, the more times you have generative AI iterate through that prompt, the better the overall response to whatever work task you're trying to solve will be.
I love that because I have been playing, right? So been writing code for 30 years, as you all know. We have an SDLC, software development lifecycle policy, and SOP. We are rolling out a new major version 6.0. And one of the things that I wanted to help instill in our developers is change management. Not that they don't, they do it. right? And one of the things I want to help them understand is, why do we version and label and tag our code appropriately, right? Why do we take this in GitHub and make version 5, 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, version 6, and that kind of stuff? And I was like trying to rack my brain to bring it into developer speak. So I just went to GPT and I was like, brain dump, like I always do. Brain dump. Take Tim's totally disjointed thoughts, but then have it respond as if I'm talking to highly technical developers on our team, and then tell it to me like I'm 5. And so it actually came back with, this is the why, this is the how, this is the reasoning, this is the thing. So I literally was just doing that last night. So I didn't have to take the time to sit there and interact over and over and over and over, trying to distill my disjointed thoughts of 30 years of code writing and best practices. ChatGPT did that in seconds. And I can just point them to it, like, kind of like Chris did over here with show me the AI stuff. And I'd be like, here's my thoughts. That would then level set that conversation, right? So and I did that in the new model, by the way, which is really interesting because it's like thinking, iterating, doing more funky things behind the scenes. And then it was like, what about X and what about Y? And ask me a question here. And I was like, oh my God, it's starting to ask me questions. Like, oh, when I was the lonely 20-year-old programmer, maybe I could have had this. And I'd be like, chat with me. That's a whole different conversation. But it has certainly come a long way. There's obviously some risks. There's some data sovereignty issues. But, as we talk about prompt engineering, and I think you hit the nail on the head, Randy, which is continual refinement, but not taking the human out of the conversation. You and I talked a little bit about this a while back. Human in the middle concept. You want to explain a little bit about HIM and kind of what that looks like? Again, without giving
so I
secret.
call it human. I call it human in the loop. So I'm going to mess up.
Human in the loop, in the middle, whatever. Human in the loop.
Yeah. So look. Again, I told you earlier. AI is a really fast moving industry. So September 12th, OpenAI released O1 and O1 preview. These are PhD level intellect, commercially accessible AI systems. And we're talking about collaborative AI systems. So we basically build a team of AI agents with a PhD intellect that can basically, connect and communicate with each other and perform a work task. Yeah.
So is that actually putting a human to look at this stuff, or is it building on the idea of the PhD super smart person?
It significantly reduces the amount of requirement for humans in the loop at all. So for example, you can now have, let's say, a teenager who's not in some expert level industry and give an instruction to a large language model team of collaborative AI agents that now communicate, build whatever AI agent systems they have using swarming technology like OpenAI just released on GitHub about a week ago. And they'll be able to solve that task for that teenager at an expert level, and that teenager doesn't have to have that expert level intellect.
Gotcha. So I can just be the dumb guy in there.
Human in the loop is now about half of what we talked about when we talked about this 3 months ago, given this new design that engineers like me are exploring.
Yeah. Again, not secret sauce, but looking at that new model, is there a way that, us as programmers and whatnot, like, can we tap into that while still maintaining compliance and security and data sovereignty and all the things we talked about 10 minutes ago?
Yeah, totally, man. Those are all just different AI agents, different instructions that you give to your team, right? That's, so you're just, constantly iterating, with your AI technology. You're constantly, being the human in the loop, giving it adjustments. But the interesting thing is that the amount of adjustments is basically reducing. So the more you adopt generative AI technology and the more that you embed it, the quicker you embed it into your systems, right? The overall benefit you're going to have over time, because, rapidly, because of its evolutions. And unfortunately, yeah.
So if I'm an MSP and I'm looking to build out a compliance program, and I'm looking at products like the compliance aid, compliance scorecard, all that kind of stuff, like, what is the benefit of, and it doesn't matter whether it's my product or your product or whatever, what is the major benefit for an MSP looking to pull some kind of LLM, generative thing, all the acronyms, into our business as an MSP to help us with our compliance program internally and then eventually with our customers? What's that one big benefit? Can I just go to Copilot and say, build me a whole compliance program and I'm done?
Well, I mean, no, you can't do that. But the big benefit is, from an MSP's perspective, is that they can offer a new service that their clients are being driven to ask for, because there is cyber insurance being asked for everything now. There's not an industry which isn't regulated. The 3 points that they mainly not object to but have had difficulty with is compliance is expensive, time consuming, and needs expertise. And that's where the big four walk in and they go, yep, it's $50,000 before we even pick up the phone. Well, that's because the standard way of doing stuff is very labor intensive. And what the MSP gets now is using things like generative AI, they get a complete full compliance program, and we take the heavy lifting, we take that big labor thing out of the equation. So it's a time consuming, non-expertise required operation now. And that's what the MSP is basically being able to get. So their three fears is cost is obviously dramatically reduced because it's less labor involved. Expertise, you've got great LLM models out there that do the expertise part for you. If you just said, there's no more human in the loop necessarily need. What's the other one? And time. Yeah, the time is just reduced, and you don't need the expertise anymore.
So you're going to save me time, which ultimately saves me money, which ultimately makes me more profitable.
And for a service you're not using anymore, that you're being asked, your clients don't know where to go at the moment. So now you can advertise the fact that you've got that capability.
So I'm gonna pause real quick right here. There's a bunch of people watching online, and we love the fact that you're kind of posting some comments in there. I'm gonna throw out a challenge to the 5,000 people watching live. Okay, not 5,000. Are you, as an MSP, using some kind of language, JI, AI, RM, XYZ, mouthful of acronyms? Are you, as an MSP, using those kinds of technologies within your current or soon to be or planned compliance program? Yes or no in the comments. Are you doing this? Are you planning to do this? Yes or no in the comments. So, all right.
50% of that should be, I think, somebody, one of the U.S. government agencies just released a study. I'll get it for you if you guys really want. But 49% of IT individuals are using some type of ChatGPT thing today. They just released the study. So 50% of them should say yes.
So I'm seeing a no, I'm seeing a yes, I'm seeing a no. That's all right. We'll keep pulling them up. I'm seeing a really long yes. Thanks, Christoph.
Well, there we go. Somebody's doing it to go through assessments.
Excuse me.
Be
Sorry.
careful, guys. I don't know how many people are on this thing, Tim, but seriously, be careful about doing cybersecurity assessments with like something like Claude. It's pretty secure, right? But the reason why I say be careful, Christoph, is because there's a public button that you could accidentally click. Okay, and now that data is publicly accessible for anybody else to look at and find in the future. So that's why okay, yeah, cool, dude. Thanks, man.
So we're kind of getting a few yeses, a few nos, a few maybes, a few cover your ass and make sure you're doing it right and make sure you don't expose it publicly comments. I love that. You pointed out a report that more and more and more people are using these kinds of things in their day-to-day operations, which I kind of think is fine. We're not going to go down the whole
the adoption of the internet.
Pardon?
The data twice as fast. So people are adopting the usage of generative AI technologies twice as fast as they adopted high-speed internet and PCs and computers.
Yeah. As a former 9600 baud internet user, I feel that pain. But running a BBS over a black and green screen back in the day, my fax machine was faster than the internet back then. Anyways, so we're winding down, kind of last 10 or 15 minutes here. Let's kind of do a quick little recap. So as an MSP, first and foremost, there's a mouthful of acronyms, right, Randy? Right, Mark? There's a mouthful of tools available, websites. I keep getting these, lists of, here's the top 5,000 AI tools, and then I get another email. Here's the list of the top 10. So there's, the stuff is coming at us fast, right? And so as you're doing and looking and playing, do your due diligence, right? I'm a Twitter user. I kind of scroll looking at stuff, and I keep seeing this thing. There's a couple of them that I'm like, I wonder what that is. So I go to my VM, I go to a different machine, and I launch, XYZ.ai, and I'm like, whoops, wipe, nuke, pave, start over. But just be cautious of the thousands and millions and trillions of tools that might be available to you as an MSP and your customer. I want to focus on this a little bit. Make sure you are having a conversation with your customer about how they and their staff plan to use these LLMs, these generative things, these AI models in their business. Because I guarantee you, as Randy pointed out, they're already doing it. And there's always been countless cases of, teacher X dumping an entire database of student data. There's all those things. So have the conversation with your customer. Do your research around the tools that are there, the data sovereignty, right? We talked about that briefly. And then, as Mark pointed out, helping you become more efficient, helping you become the smartest person in the room, right? What other things should we add, Mark or Randy, that we haven't covered? So we talked about the models and all the acronyms. We talked about the security, privacy. We talked about the how to save money and make you money kind of things. I feel like there might be one more component that we could talk about before we get into our key takeaways.
I think from our perspective, the difficulty is keeping up with the speed of which this thing is moving. And starting, if you haven't already, you need to start to plan. And as you pointed out, Tim, plan carefully how you're going to be using AI, because those that don't will fall by the wayside quite quickly in the next 6 months to a year. So you need to start to plan as to how you're going to use AI. Like you say, you need to check out what the security around these new models and the way you're using AI, how that impacts your business. And people think that AI is going to take their job, and that's not necessarily the case. What's going to happen is that they will be deployed differently. So, an auditor's expertise doesn't disappear just because AI is there. So, they'll just be used differently to, like you say, when you're building the models as opposed to using the models, they will be used to check whether answers are, are good, bad, or indifferent, and check that the hallucination isn't big. So they're still using the expertise that they've got, but they're not using it to actually answer the questions anymore. They're using it, if you like, to verify the answers. So I don't see a big shift necessarily in oh, it's going to take my job. There'll be new jobs, don't get me wrong. As we say, prompt engineers would be the latest thing as opposed to computer programmers. But that's just a natural evolution.
Well, I mean, think of it this way. When Henry Ford built Ford and he made the this whole industrial revolution of the lines and building cars and assembly lines and that whole thing, and then they started putting machines in there to kind of put some of the parts together. I mean, maybe a few people did lose their jobs, but got retrained and moved on. Yeah. But there's still humans involved in making cars for the most part, right? It's the same kind of thing. Like, we're just going to make that wheel rounder and faster.
Yep.
Yep. All right. So the last 9 minutes, I probably should have warned you all. I like to have a key takeaway. So do Mark or Randy, do one of you have a key takeaway prep to spend? We like to have the MSPs have something tangible to walk away with, something to think about to walk away with. Have a key takeaway. Who wants to go first?
I would say Mark, because I'm too nerdy. Nobody wants to take away anything. Any nerdy. They don't want to take away any nerdy stuff. I have to say.
I would say that for MSPs, you need to advertise the fact that you can now do compliance, because you're not the natural people that people go to. So compliance capability is well within your remit these days. So it's an additional service you can offer at a relatively low cost and high margin. So you need to start to look at how are you going to approach your existing clients, new clients, etc. As I say, because the market is there for them, that your clients are being asked to take out cyber insurance. That leads to them saying, asking their insurance companies, what does that mean? The insurance company is going to say you need to adhere to some sort of compliance framework. They are then going to turn to you and ask, where do I get this information from? So that would be the main takeaway that I would give from this. The issue is that the MSPs aren't necessarily the natural people that clients go to for insurance coverage. They tend to sort of lean on their insurance companies, who might actually send them to a damn lawyer to say, where do I get my compliance from? So, that would be my take.
I was going to say, that's a really good point, right? We see this a lot. I'm sure, Randy, you see this a lot too. Like, one of two things happens with the end customer, and it's either, oh, my IT company, I got an IT guy, I got a Randy that takes care of that. And Randy's like, no, I don't. Or they are, I don't know, talk to my legal team, whatever. Like, your end customers, they're going to do it anyways. They're going to start using this stuff. They already are. We see it all the time in the news. As Mark pointed out, make sure you're in the forefront. How about you, Randy? Go ahead and geek out on some of the terms and some of the things. It's all good, my friend. You're amongst friends here. I'm seeing all the people in chat. They're all IT folk like us.
All right. Oh, so what's my nerdy key takeaway? Oh gosh. Okay. I would say, it's going to sound terribly cliche, but AI agents are a real thing. Pay attention to them. With OpenAI with OpenAI's O1 model, it gives developers like me a expert level advantage over human teams. And with data centers like Microsoft Azure, I can basically pop up a team of AI agents in minutes anywhere on the 164 global data centers out there that can speak any language that are out there. So, like, that's real, that's happening. I'm looking at the technology on the other monitor. With this, I'm just going to continue. And there's a whole bunch of other developers that are out there that are doing this stuff. So if you're looking for products that are out there, I would say focus on products that are talking about large language models that are collaborating together, or AI agents that communicate with each other and also communicates with humans in the loop. So that's pretty much the key takeaway. Thanks, Tim.
So all right, we got 5 minutes, which is good.
Okay.
So put you on the spot.
Okay.
I'm an MSP. I know I have a compliance need. There's thousands of things being thrown at me. There's VC platforms everywhere touting, AI, blah, blah, blah. There's whatever. By the way, Compliance Scorecard does not have AI yet. I'm still holding on the fence. However,
well, you have some cool new friends.
I know. So Randy, I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Okay.
What are, I don't know, 2 to 3 to 5 top questions as an MSP I should ask a vendor of, hey, you got all the buzzwords. You're an AI vCISO compliance aid scorecard thing. What should I be asking you? What are the top 3 or 4 questions I should be considering when I'm talking to you?
What type of level of reasoning does your large language models use? Level 2 right now is the latest technology. Level 3 is collaborative agents, basically with reasoning. Most people out there right now are level 1 or less. Okay, so what level of reasoning? The other thing is context window limits. What's the output context window limit of your AI? So how much output can your AI do? Most people right now, most technologies are about 4,000 characters, which is like less than a page of data. Some of the new stuff out there is, I think about, gosh, I'm going to get this wrong, 25 to 150 pages worth of data.
So rate limits, that kind of stuff?
Yep. Yeah,
I run into that all the time with Dolly when I'm like, make me an image, and then it does a shitty one, and I'm like, no, make me a different one, and then after about 5 minutes, Dolly's like, yeah, no, wait, come back an hour, and I'm like, but all your images suck.
Yeah, yeah, and that's that whole like, exactly, yeah. So if you want,
so
yeah.
I might add a few things to that list, right? I might consider, when you're discussing a tool to help you around, doesn't matter whether it's ticketing, whether it's compliance, whether it's, this, that, it doesn't matter whether it's SOC or SIM or whatever tools you as an MSP are looking at that are jumping on the bandwagon. Not that, you guys are doing great stuff, so I don't want to like devalue what the compliance aid is doing. When you're in those conversations, ask the hard questions. Where is my data? Is that data being used to train other things? How is that data being used? What are you doing to ensure that injection things don't happen? How are those models structured? Dig a little deeper. Do your due diligence. Don't just jump on the bandwagon because Tim said he's got AI now. Oh, compliance scorecard now with more AI. No. Make sure you spend the appropriate time in conversation around the things that really matter, as opposed to the buzzwords that marketing teams throw out there. And we're guilty. Getting better. I keep yelling at my marketing. I keep informing and guiding and teaching our marketing team on the words that we use as a compliance company matter. But make sure that you're asking the hard questions. And you know what? You might not know the answers, but you can still go to GPT and be like, hey, this is what they said. All right. I am going to leave with my key takeaway, and then we'll give everybody the rest of the week back. So I suppose I got to pull myself up to full screen. There we go. And I suppose I got to do the thing like I did for everybody else. It's like it's my first rodeo. So as far as a key takeaway when considering to build a compliance as a service program and using things like generative AI and large language models, I would say do your homework. I would say investigate some time on what they're doing, how they're doing it, where the data is, who is storing and processing and accessing and whatnot around that data. Generative AI, large language, the buzzwords we talked about earlier in this podcast, can be really great for you as an MSP to help build out that compliance program, that compliance as a service program. And so as you're doing that, spend some time doing your diligence. I used to love tools. Shiny objects were great for me as an MSP, but I really needed to dive into what business problem am I as the MSP trying to solve for myself? What are my requirements, safeguards, and compliance things that I need to deal with? How do those relate to our customers? And ensuring whatever new shiny object, our good friends at FetLocker, whatever shiny object we want to bring in, make sure we're doing our diligence, right? Make sure we're spending the time. And so with that, I'm going to go back over here. Any last final words before I kick us all out? No? All right, everybody. Thank you so much for your time. We're going to try to get back to our at least every other week schedule of these Thursdays live streams here at Compliance Scorecard. Do the likes and the shares and the subscribe things. Tim Golden, founder, CEO of Compliance Scorecard. Randy, Mark, thank you so much for having you on here. We're looking forward to deepening our relationship and building out some integrations with you and your team.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Don't go nowhere.
Subscribe now.